Mike Shinoda, welcome to Q.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I got a lot to talk to you about. I don't really know how to talk to you about it.
Well, start with the hardest thing.
Well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Start with the easiest thing.
Well, I'm just going to say that what did going in to make this record do? What did I actually sitting in the studio making this record do for you?
I just realized today that I need to remember to tell people that my studio's in my house.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you imagine me leaving my house and going to some professional, I mean, my house, I have professional equipment in the house, but the fact is that I don't have to leave. And so for me, early on in this record, all I was doing was sitting down at an instrument and playing for the therapeutic, nature of doing it.
Yeah.
That's all I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so what did it do for you? Tell me about the therapeutic nature.
Well, so okay. Rewind like 18 months ago. We had put out a single. It was kind of a new style. It was featuring a guest vocalist, which was unusual. The album was more of a pop-leaning album. It was very, we were a little nervous about it. It was a little controversial. It was well received. The single did great. The album was getting ready. It was starting to do great. And we were just finished up a huge promo run and we were about to start really touring. And it was just, everything was like on this awesome arc, And then as everybody knows, like we lost Chester and it was more devastating just because of the timing of it all. It just seemed like so like it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And even though we all knew like one of the things that made him so beautiful is like it was that conflict. Like we always knew the friend that we had. He had a lot going on and a lot of stuff that he dealt with. But to get back to the answer to your question, I just wanted to, in terms of establishing like the kind of what was going on. In the early weeks after that, I didn't leave my house. I was really just devastated. And I tried to go out one time, and then I went to lunch, and then like the paparazzi trapped me as I left, and it was just I'm not going out at lunch. I'm not going out of my house ever again.
Because you know what, I've experienced loss similar in people in my life. I could go to the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could, and a lot of people don't really want you. One of your instincts is to like go into like your cave and not like.
I did that to you.
Yeah, which that lasted weeks. But eventually, here's the thing though: I feel like I wanted to get better. I wanted to deal with things and figure it out. And I realized that for me, I was anxious about certain things. And if I just ripped the Band-Aid off, I would be able to face them. So for example, listening to our music was hard, but I just went, with the encouragement of our bass player, Dave. He was like, I did it. You can do it, man. It's, and leaving.
So you dug out records and
leaving his house. I put it on my phone in the car. It was, and I got through it. And then, shortly after that, I realized, the same thing is going on with me and sitting down and playing music. I've been staying away from it, and I gotta just face it and sit down and play because it'll feel good to play. So by the end of the month, I think I was painting and drawing. I was playing and jamming in my, on my normal, like on my piano and my guitar and keyboards in the studio. And inevitably, those things started to kind of accumulate.
Right.
Like ideas started to just kind of bunch together, and all of a sudden I had some songs.
With all respect, why release them? I'm happy you did. I mean, they're really powerful. You call them therapeutic. They could have just stayed that way.
Right.
Why put them out?
One of the things that I noticed as right away is that the fans were devastated.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, it wasn't just, there were people who, of course, were just fans of the music and fans of his, who he was and his singing. And they were grieving, but there was something deeper than that. Like what everybody recognized so intensely in those months that followed, especially the weeks that followed, was that, oh my gosh, Linkin Park's fan base is really, it's a very tight knit family. And we've always known that's true. I think people forgot that that was true. But our fans are not, it's more of a culture than just like a music group and a bunch of people that like the music. And so I felt like they were to some degree, like they were just constantly reaching out on social media, constantly doing things to hold us up and make us feel better. To also to just, they had all these tributes and vigils and made art and all these wonderful things for him and for us. And that felt so special. I wanted to do, when I started recording these things, there were a couple things that I realized about the fans in our band at that time. One of them was that we needed to get on stage and play a show for everybody's, for all of us. One, so that we could get on stage together and just say that we did that.
Yeah.
And number two, because the fans we had a private funeral. They didn't have anything, so they needed some closure. They needed an event. And so we played a show. We set up a show at the Hollywood Bowl. Also, at the same time, I realized I was making all this stuff, and that was I wanted. It was very personal. Like, grief is very personal. So I realized that by releasing this music, I would be able to open up my personal diary to the fans, and if I was indeed like comfortable with that, that it would do me a lot of good and it would do them a lot of good, and open up the communication lines between me and them to kind of start moving things along. And I wanted that more than anything. Like, I wanted to be able to get back on stage and not feel weird about it. I wanted to be able to make songs and not feel weird about it, and not have to just eventually not make songs just about what was going on.
Right. Take a listen to this.
They'll tell you I don't care anymore, and I hope you'll know that's a lie, 'cause I found what I have been waiting for, but to get there means crossing a line. I don't know how to warn you.
That's Crossing a Line by my guest Mike Shinoda from his solo album Post Traumatic. Mike, what I just heard from you is your intention, right? You wanted to give something yourself. I'll paraphrase you as best I can. You wanted to give something of yourself and kind of crack open what you were dealing with and trying to get this out and put it out to people and put it out to the fans who Chester and Linkin Park have and had meant so much to. But that's going to take a toll on you. It has to. Like, how are you feeling about putting this music out? I know obviously you're joyful about having music out, but what's it like?
So at the time when I wrote this song, it was a few months later.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I'd written some songs that were much darker, and were very much about like just explaining some of I wanted to put the fans in my shoes. There's imagery on the album about like being at, hanging out with friends, and they bring up, the most difficult stuff at kind of an inappropriate time.
There's a great something about a sixth birthday party.
There is a line about Am I allowed to curse?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the line is basically about like you're at a party for that's like 6-year-old birthday party, and somebody's bringing up, oh, I'm sorry this happened to you and all that, and I'm like, I basically end the line with like, you're really fucking up my vibe.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, because you'd be having a perfectly fine, normal day, and then somebody you haven't seen yet would say, oh, I just wanted to say I'm so sorry.
Right.
Like, how are you doing and whatever. And that is it's a wonderful sentiment.
Well intentioned.
Well intentioned.
Yeah.
The difference between what, like you explained a second ago that you had been through a similar situation, but I was doing it in a more public way.
Yeah.
When you lose somebody or something, something bad happens. Let's say like you were engaged and one of you broke it off. Okay. Yeah. Just to put a different spin on it, and your circle of friends and family find out. Then every time you see each of them, any single one of them, the first time you see them, you have that conversation. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. How are you doing? What happened?
You can almost pinpoint it. You can see him. You're like, oh, I haven't done it with them
yet.
God,
I haven't done it with this person. The moment I
see
see somebody, I'm like, oh, I haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, here we go.
Here we go. We're gonna do the thing. And what I was experiencing was, take that scenario, which normally happens between you and your closest friends, and maybe outside your closest circle. What is that? What number is that? Like 30 people, 40 people? That's going to happen with me and a million and millions of people. Like every person I know,
Right.
every person I know, plus the people I don't know, plus the people that think they know me, plus the people who know the band, are all going to come up to me and just be like, "I'm so sorry, how are you doing?" Blah, blah, blah.
Again, well-intentioned, but
It was
my
so hard.
Christ,
Yeah, it was so hard. And so I wrote, and I thought to myself, should I say that in a song?
Yeah.
Like, do I talk about stuff like that because am I going to hurt their feelings? Like, no, they feel like they're doing the right thing. And I realized this is a very human thing. It's a normal thing. There's nothing wrong with either one of us feeling this way. So I'm just going to put it in the song, and I'm going to treat these songs like a diary. I'm going to treat them. It's autobiographical. It's just the truth. It's just the way I see it. I'm going to put it all down. And if any of it is inappropriate, if I look back at it later and say, "Oh, that was inappropriate," or "That's I don't actually feel that way. That's not the truth," then I'll remove it later. And I actually ended up writing and recording all this stuff. I have 16 songs, and I didn't change any of it. I mean, it's really the only if I edited on as I was making, it was usually because I felt like something was just I didn't say it right. But I just wanted it to be really honest. And I do look back at it, and you played Crossing a Line. Like one thing about the album that I'm really I always remind people, like, this album might seem I don't want fans to feel like this album is going to be scary. I don't want them to feel like it's going to be a downer.
No.
Because the beginning of it starts dark, but when you hear Crossing a Line, that's the point in the record halfway through where it really goes from looking backwards at the things that happened to the future and hope and all the different things that started to kind of blossom or change. That I'm really, I'm obviously grateful that these other things happen, these other moods started to happen.
If you're just tuning in, I'm Tom Power. This is Q. I'm speaking with Mike Shinoda, musician, about his solo record, Post Traumatic. It's been fun, Mike, for me. Like you said, you had to put on the phone on the way home from your bass player's house. Getting ready to, I've been a fan of your music for a while, So it's been fun for me to look back at Linkin Park now and to watch some of the old videos. And I watched Mitch and I both watched the One Step Closer video the other day.
It's ridiculous.
It's great. You get the bleach. Chester has the bleach blonde hair. You have the pink hair.
Mine's bright red, but because of the coloring of it reads a little more pink. Yeah. Which, I at the time, I loved it. It was so cool. And then years later, I hated it and I was embarrassed by it. And then now I look back at it and I love it again.
What do you think it was?
I wouldn't do it again, but
you still haven't taken off your hat, by the way. I think.
Yeah, it could be red. It could be pink.
It could be, as we speak, it could be pink.
It could.
You've been talking so much about the fans, about how much, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, about what this band means. I don't want to say means to the fans, and what Chester meant to the fans and means to the fans. What you mean? What do you think it was? And I know this is not an easy thing for the person in the band to figure out, but what do you think it was about Linkin Park that inspired that kind of devotion?
Yeah, I probably don't know.
No.
I probably don't. But I would say like,
or about him.
I have ideas.
Yeah.
I for sure have ideas. Because it'll be different for different people when you ask. Music always it hits you at a different point. Sometimes it's situational. You hear the right song at the right moment, and I don't know all the moments that these millions of people heard the stuff or what it touched. When we were writing the music, there were almost like emotional things, and then like almost like analytical, both sides of your brain, logical and creative side. On the emotional side, I know that we were coming from. Actually, let me talk the other side first.
Yeah.
In that time period when we grew up, people liked a type of music, like a genre of music. What type of, what do you listen to? I listen to metal.
I listen to punk rock.
I listen to rap.
Yeah.
Like it was all very, compartmentalized. That is not how I grew up. And when I started the band with a friend of mine from high school, we used to just listen, and we started that way. But then he listened to more rock than I did, and I listened to a lot of hip hop. And the more we started sharing music, the cooler it got. And we started to make music like that sounded like the mashups of things. When I was learning how to produce, I was taking, samples of like 9 Inch Nails and Smashing Pumpkins and Rage Against the Machine and even like breakbeats and Jackson 5, and then putting like Wu-Tang and Mobb Deep vocals over top of it.
Yeah.
Even one of them I think was actually a Michael Jackson vocal I somehow got. I don't know how that happened.
Right.
So the bottom line is, stylistically, in terms of our like musical identity, we were offering something that we were confident was new. Although people have mashed up stuff in different ways, and rap rock was a thing, but we knew everybody who heard it, once we got it, like basically got it right, everyone who heard it went like, oh, that feels new.
It felt meaningful. It felt like I felt a catharsis listening to a lot of this music.
And I think that's where the other part comes in, which is pretty much all the other new metal, rap rock, even just the metal and the alternative bands at the time. It was very macho.
Yeah.
It was we called it frat rock. Like it was very drink beers and party and get chicks.
Get naked.
It was it was just so gross, and we weren't into that stuff. It was just like I liked some of those. I liked a lot of those bands' music, but lyrically it fell short for me because it just felt one-dimensional. I didn't relate to it, and we said, well, what are our favorite things? Like I love Public Enemy because they're talking about things people aren't talking about. I love Depeche Mode. There's a darkness to it, and I love 9 Inch Nails for that same reason, and I love Deftones for that same reason, and so on. So it was like,
and Chester dug all these things too. Like he was
into those. We had overlaps on some of those things. He grew up on STP and like a lot of grunge, like Soundgarden, STP, Nirvana. He also loved punk rock, and like there's some funny stuff like Dead Milkmen. He loved.
Oh yeah. I remember Dead. Like my cousin had their tape. I remember them.
He loved the Misfits.
Yeah.
And also, but we really connected on certain things. We really connected on, like Depeche Mode was always one of those ones, by the way. And so as it, I think we were kind of getting to like what was the thing that connected. There's always like moments in time where things just kind of come together in a special way at just the right moment. And it was the moment, when we looked back after the first record, and I think we were still on tour, and one of the record reps one of the people from Warner Brothers came to the show, and they said, "You guys, I have some really big news for you." And they said, "You have the best-selling album on the planet this year." Now, this was the year that Britney Spears debuted, and she was the hugest pop star.
Yeah.
You couldn't open a magazine that didn't have Britney in it. And we just thought she was the biggest, because we always assumed pop was the biggest thing. And they said, no, like she's number one in a bunch of countries. You guys were number one in a bunch of countries too. But cumulatively, yours is the biggest album on the planet. What
a ride.
We didn't believe them at first.
Yeah.
We thought they were joking or they'd screwed up or something.
Can we do the concert for a second? So at the beginning of the interview, I said to you, "Hey man, I got a bunch of stuff to talk to you about," and you said, "Let's do the hard stuff first." And I said, "No, I'm gonna do the hard stuff later."
Okay.
But you've been so giving and open. I feel weird about playing this to you, but the reason I want to play it first, I want people to listen to this because it exemplifies exactly what Mike and I have been talking about almost this entire interview, which is the fans' dedication. I've been to a lot of concerts. I've never heard anything like this.
Our special guest on this one is our favorite special guest of the whole night. Our very, very favorite. And that's up to say because there was all these great people that have come out. And if I say that, then it makes them look bad. But I do mean that that's our favorite guest. It's you guys.
That's Linkin Park performing In the End, or the fans of Linkin Park, or the community of Linkin Park performing that song in tribute to their late singer Chester Bennington. Chester's part there, sung by thousands of fans on the show. Mike, what does it feel like just to hear that?
Oh, it's so great. I love it. It's really moving. That was one of the most special, if not the most special part of that whole show. And I do actually still play, when I'm doing shows now, I play just piano and vocal. play that song and do it that way. Actually, because it's the way we always did it. I mean, for at least 10 years, when we play that song, I've told the fans, like, we're going to start this song and I want you to sing Chester's part. And sometimes he would sing with them, sometimes he wouldn't. He'd just wait till the chorus and he'd come in then. We even there were days where we got up to the chorus and then the whole band cut out and just let them sing the chorus a cappella. It's beautiful. Yeah. Such a cool thing. And you're right. That does, it's symbolic of the relationship between the band and the fans. Like there is a blurred line in our relationship between where we end and they begin.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's this, obviously there's this hole.
Yeah.
Where something was.
Yeah.
And then it's filled by thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people who love you, who you never even met.
Yeah.
Man, that's something else.
One of the things that happened this year that was so, there's so many examples of why that's like that speak to what you just said. When one of them is this, when Avicii passed away.
Yeah.
So Chester passed away in July last year, and a few months later, Avicii passed away, and I think I may have made a little tweeted something about it because I hadn't met him and I didn't know him well at all, but I felt really bad for them and his fans. But that's basically all I said. And the next thing I knew, our fans were reaching out to his fans one-on-one. They were reaching out to them and saying, basically, if you guys need a shoulder to lean on, we will be there for you because we get it. We've already been through it this year. And we know what it's like. We know how you feel. I couldn't believe that. Like none of us in the band or our management or anybody who's like related to us said, "Hey guys, this is how we feel." The fans just did it because it's the kind of people they are.
I got two things I have to talk to you about, and I know you got to go, so I'll keep it quick.
Yeah.
That night raised a lot of money for the One More Light Fund, which partly shines a light on mental health and helping families and individuals cope with mental and emotional struggles. Unfortunately, given the job that I do, this isn't the only conversation like this I've had to have this year. You talk about Avicii, you talk about Cornell. Has it given you any perspective on what musicians might be dealing with, what artists might be dealing with when they're struggling, or just people?
Well, look, we were also, I got like kind of brought back into it when the conversation started to include Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
First of all, it is they call it suicide contagion. One thing that people need to know is that the ways that we talk about it do matter. The words that you use matter. The words that you tweet matter. And the thing that a lot of people aren't thinking is that pressure gets put on the journalists, rightfully so. You guys have an audience that if you say the wrong things, you're going to trigger people. And for some people, the stakes are higher.
I could not agree with you more. It's something I think about virtually every day.
And the simple thing, and there are a couple simple things that I think are the top of the priority list, which are, we say died by suicide, not the other things. And we say, and when you're describing the things, just don't be graphic, don't be sensationalistic, don't get all dramatic about the descriptions, and don't use like really gory details. Those things are triggers for people. And like I said, you could be talking to 1,000 people, and if one of them is susceptible and they hear you do that, you are putting them in danger. And that's a crazy thought. Now, here's the other thing. We talk a lot about about journalists and celebrities, having that responsibility. But right now, we have more influencers, I believe, more influencers on the planet than we ever have. That's because a kid 1 minute has 15 followers on a social media platform, and the next thing you know, some of them have 250,000 followers.
Overnight,
just like made a cool video, and all of a sudden everybody's listening. And they're 19 years old, and they don't know better. They need to start to know better. And that's the conversation we're having right now, is that you guys, I know you care about your fans. You made cool videos. You're just having fun. And you love that those fans are listening to you. So please be respectful to them and just know that the words you use matter. I mean, this is the reason Logan Paul got in trouble. So don't end up like that. He did the wrong thing. We can easily just go. You can Google it right now. Look for best practices when talking about suicide or mental health. And the other thing, last thing I'll say about it is when I was never like, I'm not a mental health expert.
Nope.
I have just been through a thing and I've learned some stuff along the way now. And one of the things I always tell people to remember is that mental health is health. When we talk, when you wake up, if you have a physical ailment, if your back hurts, then you might say, I need to take it easy today. If it's worse than that, you might say, I need to take medication. If it's worse than that, you might just say, oh, wow, I need to go to the doctor today. Let's start doing that with mental health. Let's start doing it with your mental status. You do a little check-in, say, oh, my body feels fine. My brain actually doesn't. Do I need to take it easy? Do I need to take medication? Do I need to see a professional?
Mike, it's been great talking to you. How are you doing with this? How are you doing with people like me asking you about it?
Generally really good. When I did, my friend Susan from Warner Brothers Records in the other room. Hi, Susan. She's in the other room. We did a day of press. I normally, with a Linkin Park press day, I can do like multiple days of I could do like 8 hours of press, and be pretty cool by the end of the day, be fine. And I could even do that for a couple days. But at the beginning of the cycle, I think I did like 5 hours-ish or something, and I maxed out. She said I went 4 interviews too far because I was already starting to go brain dead by the end.
Because people are going to ask you. We were very cautious. And we were like, because again, we on the show, we try to be as cautious as we can and respectful, and we all have gone through stuff like this. There's going to be times where people are going to ask you uncomfortable, inappropriate things, and I've
had a few of them.
I don't know how you do it, but
it's been, people are just doing their best, and if they ask something, very, very seldom is somebody just a bad person who's just trying to be, nasty or
manipulative or
exploitative. It's usually selfish.
Yeah, exploitative.
It's usually selfish. Yeah. And if that happens, then it hasn't really happened yet. If that happens, I guess it's my job to call them out and say, yeah, you're being really rude. That's being really selfish. Usually people are not that way. And I think that I'm grateful for a lot of things we just talked about. I'm grateful for the fans who have been there for me. Yeah. I'm grateful for the fans who've supported the music and allowed me to do what I love to do. And I'm more grateful for that than ever, because there have been times when it's it just feels like this is just what we do. It's more routine. And these days there is no routine. Everything is in question. So for me to just be able to sit here and talk about this stuff or go out on stage and play new music and have anybody know the words is a miracle.
I hear what you're saying. I just know that you have to talk about your friend, and I know that's not easy. And
that's the part. But that's the part where again, rather than being sad that we don't get to spend time with him and listen to him make new things, we get to be grateful for what we did have. Look at the incredible stuff that he sang on, and the amazing shows, and the wonderful charity efforts that he put so much into. He did so many things that were great. So we get to enjoy those. The music is here forever, so we get to enjoy it.
Man, what a joy it's been to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It has been really fun.